Hi, gorgeous humans. Welcome back to another episode. This one is prompted by conversations I've been having a lot lately, especially with some new clients that I've started working with and also just friends in town. And I think that's completely normal because when we are in this kind of mindset or this world of metamorphosis, we have this thing that comes along with it, which is, of course, as you've heard me talking about over and over, a threshold and stepping over a threshold. Sometimes this is really exciting. Sometimes the threshold moments are really have a lot of momentum and excitement, and we've done a lot of maybe preparation, or we've bought expensive things to get ready for it and that kind of thing. And then it starts with like a bang almost. This is the kind of thing like New Year's resolutions or, big moments where we make a big decision, we're going to make a big change and we're going to buy all of the equipment that goes along with it and then we're going to do it. Oftentimes though, the threshold can often also be very, very, very difficult to step across for this one reason. And it is just this complete myth of waiting until we're ready, feeling ready enough. And this exact mindset, this exact phrase can keep you stuck for an entire lifetime. And I know because I've seen this. I've seen it so many times. I've met so many different people in the exact same boat. I've spoken to people all over the world with this same mindset of that I'm just not ready yet. I'm just not ready. I just need to do this other thing. 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 And actually, now that I'm saying that, it's bringing to mind something that I read. I'm going to completely butcher this story, but I'll try and do it anyway. But basically, there was this very enlightened person going around, and some very simple shopkeeper looked after him when nobody else was going to look after him. So as a gift to the shopkeeper, he said, I will take you straight to enlightenment and you can go straight to the enlightened realm as a gift. And then the shopkeeper was like, oh yeah, okay, that would be really nice, but can I just have 7 more years because I just need to organize some things for my son. And so the guru or the enlightened person was like, okay, can have 7 more years. And then he came back in 7 years and the man was like, oh yeah, I really, really want to do that thing, but there's still just these things I need to do for my son to prepare him for life and his wedding and he's getting married and blah, blah. I just need 7 more years. And so the enlightened man goes away and then comes back in 7 years. And the man has passed away, but he's been reborn. He came back as a dog first. And then the saint found this dog and he was like, okay, I'm ready to are you ready to come now? You're a dog, let's go. And the dog was like, yeah, but I just need to protect my son. I'm protecting his lands, I'm protecting the crops. And so I just need to do that. So I just need 7 more years. And then so he goes and he comes back as a snake. And then he's guarding this treasure that's buried in the backyard that the son needs to find. And so the saint by this point, the enlightened person by this point is just completely sick and tired of this. So he goes to the son, tells him where the treasure is and tells him to kill the snake, which he does. And then while the soul has waiting to be attached to another body, the man grabs it, the saint takes it and takes it to the enlightened realm. And I just thought this was such a beautiful, funny, random depiction of this thing of there's always going to be more things that we feel like we need to put in place before we're ready to take the leap. There's always going to be things to do. There's always going to be more things we could learn. There's always going to be more things we could change. There's always going to be niggling things to focus on. There's always going to be something else. And in the story, it was 7 years and 7 years and 7 years and 7 years and 7 more years. And there was always something else that wasn't quite done yet, that wasn't quite organized yet, that just needed to be prioritized a little bit more than this thing. And it's such an interesting, I'm reluctant to use the word self-sabotage, but it's an interesting mindset pattern that we get into where we just need to feel a little bit more prepared, a little bit more ready to take the leap. And the reason that it's so tricky of a thing is, first of all, because it feels productive. We feel like we're actually achieving something by doing those little things in the meantime, even though it's a very, very, very elaborate scheme that we do to not take the leap that we're actually scared of taking. So it's almost like this, what's the word, where it's that kind of false sense of gratification where we're yeah, we're doing, it's making the list of all the things that you have to do, which feels really satisfying, but you're not actually doing any of the things on the list that you actually need to do. So it's this false sense of accomplishment. The other thing is that when we're on the way of that, while we're in the middle of being distracted by all of these other things, We're not actually focused on the task that is at hand. And the actual thing that will really move the needle is just taking the leap and starting to do the thing. And then you're going to learn literally everything that you need to know to be able to do that thing as you go. And there's so many quotes about this. I think there's a very famous Rumi quote as well that just says, like, as we walk the path appears. But first you have to step on the path. First you have to be on the path. You have to be taking steps on the path to know what the next part of the path looks like, what you will need for the next part of the path. Because when we're on a hike, for example, you can't see the whole hike ahead of you. Maybe you've done some research and that kind of thing on what you're going to need. And so you can be prepared for like different terrain and different all of these things. But if you're not on it, how can you know? You can only guess. So it's a very tricky thing. And I can relate so much to this feeling because I've done it so often in my own life as well. And not that long ago, I started experimenting, or a few years ago, I started experimenting with this thing of like, what if we just jumped before we were ready and figured out how to fly on the way down? And I always ask myself this thing, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And often it's not that bad, you know, like if we actually allow ourselves to confront that thing, because often that's a very nebulous feeling. This will go wrong, bad things will happen. And it's just this kind of like lingering feeling in the background that is like, makes us feel uncomfortable, makes us feel not ready, makes us not comfortable to take a risk. But when we actually like grab that thing and look at it and put it right in front of us and just be like, yeah, what could go wrong? Realistically, like what could go wrong? This could go wrong, that, this, that. If all of those things went wrong, could I manage those things? The answer is normally yes, right? If everything turned out in the worst possible scenario, what would happen? You'd probably just end up back where you are now most of the time. Maybe you will have lost some time, maybe you will have lost some money. Those things come and go all the time anyway. So that was my own approach. And really, like, it was a thing like this as well, of like quitting jobs, going traveling, or moving overseas, moving different places overseas, and all of these things, taking big risks for relationships, moving overseas for relationships, changing career paths multiple times. And it was always this thing of like, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it would always just be that it wouldn't work out, and then I would just have to come home to Melbourne, and I would have to find another job. I would have, probably lost money. I would have time would have passed, but time always passes anyway, so that's a bit of a non-event. But it's this thing as well of like, there isn't really that much of a disastrous thing going to happen when we take these risks and when we learn as we go. And of course, literally every part of our system is going to be fighting against this, because our body, our nervous system, our brain was designed to keep us safe above all else. And it is unsafe, technically, to do things that we're uncertain about, that we're not sure how we're going to figure it out. We're not sure exactly what it's going to be like when we get there. We're not quite sure how we're going to figure out this situation. We're moving overseas. We don't know what kind of job we can find. We don't know what we're going to do for money yet. We don't know who we're going to meet. We don't know what our social circle is going to be. We don't know what our hobbies are going to be. And all of these things are big unknown factors, which of course make us feel uncomfortable, which of course make us feel unsafe, which then of course stop us from ever doing that thing. But the problem about this is that the certainty is not real. It's not real anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could be working the same job, 9-to-5 job, and you haven't taken any of these risks in your life. You've never done anything that you actually genuinely in your heart of hearts would have loved to do. Maybe you wanted to do a big solo backpacking trip. Maybe you wanted to move to China and go and train to be a Shaolin Kung Fu master. Maybe you wanted to, take a risk for love and move to another country. Maybe you wanted to do maybe you wanted to do like a exchange program. Maybe you wanted to be an au pair in Switzerland, any of these things. But you didn't because you were unsure and you wanted to stay in your job, and your job felt very stable and very secure. But you could literally go to your job tomorrow and just not have a job anymore because the company has gone under, the company's gone bankrupt, because they're like giving more tasks to AI and they don't need you anymore. So many things in our life are completely uncertain, We think our living situation is certain, but then anything can happen. We think that life is certain, that the things that are going around us are certain, the people in our lives are certain. Everything is completely unpredictable all of the time. And the more we try and cling to this certainty and grab onto it and like make it comply to our wishes and what we want and how we can keep everything so that everything feels very safe and contained, it doesn't exist, because it's impossible. Life is just moving at its own rhythm, at its own pace. People are moving at their own rhythm and pace. Unpredictable things are happening all the time. And the more that we can accept this and just embrace a sense of uncertainty, I think, the more we can take the leap before we're ready. The more we can make moves, make investments, make choices, make changes before we actually feel ready in ourselves. And it is just such a trick. It's such a tricky thing that our mind does, because it feels like it's looking after us. It feels like it's keeping us safe. It feels like it's keeping everything very like organized and sanitized and predictable, and everything's going fine. But actually, is that what you really want? You know, just more of the same. Most of us want something different. Most of us want something new. We want to have new experiences. We want to try things. We want to see if we actually could make something work. And instead of letting ourselves take steps before we're ready, we talk ourselves out of the thing before we've even looked at it properly. Do you know what I mean? And you might think that like, this is easy for her to say. You know, she's like traveled a lot. She's been living overseas. She's just like doing this diploma. Like, yeah, it's easy for her to say. But I, of course, went through this exact same process as well so many times of just literally not having a clue what I was doing and just figuring it out as I went along, making decisions with almost no money in my bank account and moving places, going places, experimenting with different things, and just letting myself be experimental in my life to just discover what would happen. What would I learn about myself on the way? How could I learn to live life differently? What different ways are there of living life? You know what I mean? Because we all know the one that we grew up with. We all know the one that's familiar to us from our own lifestyle back in our home country. But people live in so many different ways, so many different ways. And I feel so delighted and so lucky, I use this word loosely, because we look at these people that get to have these experiences and we call them lucky. But they're not lucky. Maybe they are lucky. But as much as luck, they just went and figured it out as they went along. And again, and again, and again, and again. And then they ended up in this position where they have all of these beautiful things. They've had all of these beautiful experiences. They've got to experience life and themselves and other people in so many different ways. And then we call them lucky for all of these experiences. But they really earned them. They made them happen. They were brave enough to take the leap before they were ready. And so I feel lucky to have had so many different experiences of how people live life differently. And had I just stayed in Melbourne, in my hometown of Melbourne, and wherever I was living, maybe with some friends, maybe moving around, I don't know, I would never have got to experience all of these different ways of life. How people live in the UK, how people live in Spain, and the contrast between those different things. How people live when they're living in a big city and they're unwell in hospital and they're being rehabilitated for different surgeries or different conditions or strokes and spinal cord injuries and all of these things. How those people live compared to people who are elite athletes that go to the Olympics, that ride the Tour de France. How do they live? How do they think? What are they doing? What are they eating? What are their mindsets? How do they move? And then to be also just traveling in a lot of different places, backpacking in a lot of different places, meeting a lot of different people with a lot of different mindsets, staying in a lot of different people's houses and just seeing how people live in their house. You know, like I stayed with an extremely beautiful friend in Spain almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago now, just over 2 years ago. And it was so beautiful to me how she lived. She was living there with her partner and her house was just like completely open to anybody. And there was a whole bunch of us like moving around because we were all going to the same festival in Spain. And she was just like, yeah, come and stay. And there was so many people staying in this house, just in all random places. And somehow we all just like bought random things in the supermarket and all cooked together. And people were just coming and going. And she was so just relaxed about it. So relaxed and like so just completely open to it. And that was something that I didn't even know existed in my own life. Like if guests were coming over, the house would need to be very tidy, and it was definitely like a thing that was like organized and planned for, so that everybody would, there would be the right food for the right meals and everything to be organized. And I was like, you can kind of just wing it, and people will just wing it and figure it out, and you can just be very like chill about it. And I just think like so fascinating to see so many different things, to get to have so many of these different examples of ways to live your life. And if you don't leap before you're ready, you will just stay where you are. You will just slowly increment along, a little bit here, a little bit there, slowly, 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 slowly. But you learn so much more from just jumping in the deep end and making sure that you can figure it out as you go. And this is the next piece, actually. It's not necessarily waiting until you're ready, but it's being very well resourced in what you want to do, so that you're not just completely flailing around in the deep end of the pool, drowning. And it's a different thing from feeling ready, I think, because feeling ready is a feeling. It's a very ephemeral, fluffy, vague thing. And because it's a very unfamiliar thing to most of us, we don't really know what it is. We don't necessarily know how to identify it. We don't know how to work with it. Being well-resourced is an extremely tangible thing. So if you wanted, say for example, you wanted to go and live in Spain. It's been a dream of yours your whole entire life. You've been working in the same corporate job since you finished uni. You've been climbing the corporate ladder. It's okay. But nothing feels alive in your heart. And you wish in your heart of hearts that you could go and live in Spain. You have some savings. You're not quite sure what you would do there to make it work. But, So being well-resourced would look like learning Spanish, probably. Like learning some Spanish before you go, so that you can interact with different people. Making a lot of different connections. If you're not already connected to people over there, maybe like reaching out to some different places where you could volunteer, or places where you could go and just speak to them, especially related to your interests and your passions. Like start reaching out to different people and places in your industry, or the industry that you would love to be working in or exploring over there. You could learn about the history, you could learn about, the country itself and its lifestyle. You could start doing some research into maybe how you could transition the skills that you already have into a different looking, similar profession that you could maybe do remotely, or that you could maybe do in a different way. All of these things would be making yourself well-resourced. The actual feeling of being ready, the actual booking the ticket itself. Like you can always learn more Spanish. You can always make more connections. You can always try getting a different job more and more and more and more. Make sure all of these things. But there's no end point of any of those things until you're extremely, extremely fluent in Spanish, which will take years, until you have even more savings, which there is no ceiling for that, until you've figured it out with 100% job certainty. Like any of these things, if you're waiting for the moment of completion, they don't have completion, so you will be waiting forever. And being well-resourced is just making sure that you have enough of those things to do the thing just with a little bit of comfort. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to be having just a horrible time because you're completely unprepared. You want to be prepared. But prepared is different to ready, this mystical ready. So all of this just to say, you're not going to feel ready. You're never going to feel ready. And it's just something we need to just put in the bin completely, I think. And instead of feeling ready, we should be focusing so much more on like, what makes my heart feel so delighted and excited by the possibility of. And then don't get so carried away with all of the questions of how and why and what about this and what about that and I'm not sure about this and what. Like our mind is always going to take the things of our heart and rationalize them and say, no, this is not possible, that's not realistic, blah, 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 blah. But our heart knows. And we're so good at just completely ignoring it. Or we hear the whispers of it and then of course, our mind takes over immediately and just says like, no, that will not be happening. And we need to listen to that so much more, I think, because it's leading us to the right path. Our mind will always just keep us in a small box because our mind loves to like keep things very like neat and tidy and just controlled and predictable and all of these other things. And it likes things to be just realistic and just, not a fuss. Our heart wants what is really for us, you know, our growth, our evolution, different things in life, different experiences, things that are going to take us onto different life trajectories, where we can uncover our gifts in different ways, where we can explore the impact that we want to have in the world, the impact that we want to have on the people that we meet, the types of beautiful, beautiful, beautiful experiences of life that are waiting for us out there. And that's what our heart so desperately wants. And I think oftentimes when we feel so depleted and depressed and anxious, it's because we've just completely lost touch with listening to what our heart wants. We're stuck in this rationalization of like, this is not possible, that's not possible, this is not realistic, we can't afford that, that's not what people do, that's not the right way to behave, that's not the status quo, that's not the path that we're supposed to follow. We spend too much time studying to actually do that. We have a mortgage to pay, like all of these things. Our mind really doesn't have that many inspirational, beautiful, wonderful things to share with us. It's just trying to keep everything contained in a very reasonable box. And when we lose that connection with our heart and what our heart truly wants and what our heart is saying, yes, 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 imagine. That's when we lose hope, we lose faith in the fact that this world is a beautiful place. Because we've lost the ability to listen to what our heart wants, to what our soul wants. And what our heart wants is just to see what happens. Our heart trusts that we will meet the right people. Our heart trusts that the right things will unfold, that the path will unfold in front of us as we step onto it. The heart knows that life is looking out for us. The heart knows that we've got all of the tools that we need to be able to figure things out as we go. If we can just go before we're ready. Ready is the paradigm of the mind. Ready is this mystical, nebulous, non-existent thing that our mind uses to keep us in a box. Our heart doesn't care about ready. Our heart cares about what impact are you having? What people are you meeting? How do you feel? How do you wake up in the morning feeling? What do you want to do? Don't you want the sunlight on your skin? Don't you want to be able to sing in the shower because you're that delighted by your life? Don't you want to be able to just go to Spain and live in a beautiful house on the coast full of bougainvilleas, eating, I don't know, tortilla every day for lunch, sipping coffee, meeting old Spanish people and chatting to them? Because you could be doing that. You know what I mean? There's nothing stopping you, really. So really we can all do ourselves such a big favor and not get so locked in this thing of ready, not locked into this endless waiting, endless going around in circles, endless, just tricking ourselves with this mystical ready. It's not coming. Ready isn't there. It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. Listen to your heart. Trust what it wants for you. It wants your evolution. It wants your growth. It wants so many beautiful things for you. So trust that you've got what you need to take. Take the leap. You will discover your wings on the way down, and you will discover that your wings are even far more glorious than you thought they were. And you will meet other people as well on the way. They'll teach you things. They will teach you how to fly. It's such a beautiful way to live, honestly. So this is my wish for all of us, that we can leap before we're ready, that we can trust that everything will unfold in front of us, and that we can make sure that we do it gracefully, we do it elegantly, we do it and share our magic with the world. This is my wish for all of us. Here's to our metamorphosis.